This is Louisiana versus all y'all's Recruit That Boot. I'm Jarrett Roser. He's Sam Spiegelman. We're getting to about the midway point of July, and everyone is anxiously awaiting what Lamar Brown is going to do on Thursday. I told Lamar a couple weeks ago, essentially, man, I'm just waiting on your announcement, and then it's vacation mode for at least a week or so before this fall camp is fast approaching, man. It's almost August, damn near. But we'll get into what the latest is on Lamar Brown and where we kind of see him going, or at least the anxiousness levels of waiting to see where he goes. But there's also a lot to get into on the LSU recruiting front over the past week. 3 new commitments since we last spoke. One miss that we'll kind of unpack a little bit as well, but a lot to get to today, certainly. Sam, how are things going on your end, and your perspective on just the chaotic stretch of all these commitment announcements flying fast and furious?
Yeah, I have no idea what day of the week it is, but I do know that like Monday, I too will be vacationing mentally because there's a surge between July 1st and the 14th, at least in the very tiny little section of the country that I cover. The blue chippers in that area are falling off the board like hot fries, which includes Lamar Brown, which is maybe the most polarizing recruitment in recent memory, maybe all-time memory at this point. But it's been hectic. It's been fun. It's been challenging. It's been a lot of like waking up, just like what I miss. And that's like how these recruitments feel. They're in a unique territory in this day and age of recruiting. So I'm living la vida loca, and looking forward to unwinding at a date to be determined later.
I've pushed off enough vacation stuff that at this point, I think we're just hoping to like get down to New Orleans for like a mini staycation for like 3 days next weekend, but we'll see how it goes. Last night I was working on stuff until about midnight, and then eyes popped open at about 3 a.m. Had to do a quick Twitter check, a little pace around the apartment, grab some water, and somehow ended up on a tangent of reading like a Tupac letter to Madonna from the early 90s, and was like, I need to go back to sleep, man. Like 8 a.m.'s coming quickly. And that's kind of the cutoff of how late I can stay in bed right now. But look, we're going to get into all of the Lamar stuff. I was on radio earlier today, and I think 3 different times said, yeah, so we'll all wait for tomorrow. I mean, Thursday. It's still Tuesday. We've just been so tapped into the Lamar Brown process that it feels like that's here now, but we still have, at the time we're recording this, about 46 hours. But over the last week, I mentioned 3 commitments for LSU. We'll start with Trenton Henderson, a win last Tuesday or Wednesday night, whatever day of the week that was, out of Pensacola Catholic, a guy that we talked about some last week. We expected LSU would be the move, and it was. Huge get for Kevin Peoples and company to get the blue chip prospect out of the Florida Panhandle. Now that it is a commitment announcement in favor of LSU, what should LSU fans be looking forward to about Trenton?
Yeah, LSU is doing their homework in the trenches. This is a big recruiting victory for the Tigers, for Blake Baker, for Kevin Peoples. Trenton is the real deal. He's about 6'4", 230, 40 pounds. This is a true edge defender that they can potentially plug and play depending on where he's at after his senior season. But to me, this is one of the marquee edge rushers in the entire country. Mario Cristobal and the Miami Hurricanes in Florida and the Florida Gators, and they were the first to kind of jump on. I think I said it last week. Auburn had momentum. Texas loved this kid, but it's LSU that surged at the right time. And edge is something that is not available in the state of Louisiana, so they had to go outside their region. It's really difficult for LSU to recruit in the Panhandle. That's close to Florida State. It's obviously inside the Sunshine State, and it opens up the rest of the SEC when you're in the Panhandle to come in there. And I think it was a massive victory for LSU at that position, getting a marquee edge rusher with those schools that were also in contention. This is a huge recruiting victory, and I think that this will be one of the LSU fans' favorite players in the class, especially as they pay more attention and see what he does as his senior season at Pensacola Catholic.
The same night, the Tigers miss on J.J. Bush, which was, again, we last week spoke and said it felt like it was 2 for LSU that night, that was kind of what the indications were. And then not long after we wrapped up, we started to get word that it was going to end up being Arkansas later that night. And so I think essentially for a guy out of Theodore, Alabama, linebacker that Blake Baker loved, and we talked about at different points throughout this offseason, throughout this, recruiting cycle, what is your sense of what happened there? What Arkansas did well to surprise a lot of folks and ultimately land the commitment from J.J. Bush? And does it sound like it's kind of a done deal and that's where he'll end up going to play his college football, at least as much as it can be a done deal in July, knowing that it is recruiting and recruiting never sleeps?
Yeah, I was taken aback. I mean, of the two that we spoke about last week, Trenton Henderson and J.J. Bush, LSU had been the leader for J.J. Bush for a good portion of the spring. As soon as Blake Baker offered him kids in the Gulf Coast, Mobile area love LSU. It's Mobile is kind of a home away from home if you're a New Orleans person. The gumbo in Mobile is exceptional if you've ever had it. And it felt like J.J. Bush, who had been to campus on multiple occasions, that was starting to run away from Baylor and Arkansas and really Missouri, and before that, Mississippi State. LSU had triumphed past all those schools at different points. And since his OV, I believe on June 13th, that this was LSU's race to lose. So that final visit to the Hill completely changed things for JJ. But I can say this: we know that JJ has since reached back out to the LSU side. I think the way that things went down, LSU was already planning to replenish at the linebacker hybrid second level defender spot. They got some good news coming up in that area. So I think LSU will start out recruiting JJ Bush, but no, I don't think JJ Bush's recruitment is done. And I think we saw that by the way that it ended on July 4th or July 6th. And then kind of is continuing to be a little bit fluid just a few days after.
Yeah, July 2nd, I think, the Wednesday night. My days, like you said at the beginning of this, are all over the map. But we got to the July 4th holiday on Friday. When we talked middle of last week, I mentioned kind of keep an eye on Isaiah Washington, that he'd floated the idea of potentially announcing a commitment that day. And so even though he announced his commitment after one was already, in the mix earlier in the day, let's start with him as the in-state guy. Isaiah Washington, the two-way standout for Haynesville that we've talked about a few times during the course of the last couple of months. I think great job by Jake Olson in particular and Corey Raymond and company identifying this kid, right as he was starting to blow up on the heels of track state championships. Jake had already been in touch by that point. And throughout the last couple of months, Isaiah just seemed enamored with the opportunity to play for home state LSU and what that could mean to his community and the next generation of his cousins and kids in the Haynesville community. And then just blown away by everything LSU had to offer from a facility standpoint and, a pipeline to the NFL. He told me last Thursday night, tell folks I'm a kid that's going to be playing on Sundays. And he told me previously, essentially, that looking at LSU on the visit that he took down to Baton Rouge, that was the type of a college program that every student athlete should have an opportunity to play for, that he was blown away to even imagine that this was a college facility with everything that they had in terms of resources. And so a lot that he was really excited about. And I think, I'll let you speak to the fact that he's someone that I think, despite being a little bit under the radar, LSU fans should be really, really excited to add to this class.
Yeah, we've talked about it, and we know that the LSU staff was in the Superdome last December, seeing what Isaiah has done at multiple positions for a program that, because it's in Louisiana, and LSU is very cognizant of what the Haynesville program is all about. It's blue collar work mentality, the selflessness to play multiple positions, and I think when he had his explosion on the track this spring, that was enough that LSU was into this. And I love this get. Obviously, we know that they missed on their top safety target, Blaine Bradford, who's going to head up to Ohio State. But, you have Aiden Hall, and now you have Isaiah Washington, who has elite speed, position versatility. When you're talking about a safety makeup. You love the experience on different spots. The safety is supposed to be one of the smartest players on the field, patrolling the back end. When you played quarterback and when you've played some defense and when you're going to play some special teams at LSU, you have that wealth of knowledge that you bring to the back end of the secondary. Arkansas really fell in love with Isaiah Washington. Texas Tech fell in love with Isaiah Washington. The incredible staff at Tulane fell in love with Isaiah Washington. Those are just a few. So I think this is LSU doing their homework, getting ahead of the curve early on an in-state kid, winning that recruitment at the right time. And yes, I think that in a couple of months, as much like Trenton Henderson, when folks start tuning into Isaiah Washington on a week-to-week basis during the prep football season, they're going to have a lot of fun seeing what this kid is capable of. And when he gets to LSU, the sky is going to be the limit for him.
I got asked about him earlier, essentially. Yeah, he's the quarterback for Haynesville, but how do you think he kind of translates? He was in all district, I think all state defensive back. We saw him make a great play on a ball in the Superdome this year against South Plaquemine, and all of we talk about the track accolades and whatnot, everything that he brings there athletically and his instincts and feel for the game, wherever you put him on the football field, and his ball skills, he's already had a chance to show some of at the high school level and on the 7-on-7 circuit. And so while folks may be a little bit more familiar with him right now as the quarterback for Haynesville, he's played an awful lot of DB already and feels really comfortable back there. And I think once he gets to an LSU room, to an LSU strength and conditioning program, and gets a chance to really focus in on that position at the next level, he's going to be someone that, whether it's year one or maybe more likely that second year, is someone that's going to be an impact player in the secondary for the Tigers. The other commitment on the 4th of July, a guy that I don't know that we realized was committing last week, Bryson Culie, someone we'd certainly talked about before as LSU, entered the equation of his recruitment in a strong way. He announces his commitment on the morning of 4th of July, a second win in Mississippi of the summer for Brad Davis and company, who I wrote kind of a follow-up story after the Bryson announcement that Brad Davis has just been crushing it, both obviously in Mississippi specifically with now Bryson Culie, Emmanuel Tucker for this class, Tyler Miller a year ago, but all over the Gulf Coast, wherever he's needed to go. 2 years ago with the Texas Heavy group, this past year with Mississippi, Arkansas, and Florida out there, Jacksonville with Solomon Thomas, and now this year a couple of in-state guys and dipping back into the SIP for a couple. What a job at a position group where they're having to replace 4 NFL-bound guys this year to restock that room the way that Brad Davis and company have continued to do so. How big of an addition to this 26 class is Bryson Culie out of Laurel, Mississippi?
Yeah, it's not easy to recruit Mississippi, but I think when you're able to puff your chest out like Brad Davis can and say, I put 4 cats in the NFL last year, and we're going to have another wave from this group follow suit, I think that job becomes a little bit easier. Listen, these battles in Mississippi have not been easy. Neither have the ones in Texas. He went into East Texas and beat out the Aggies for Weston Davis once upon a time. Last year held off Ole Miss and State for Tyler Miller, who is a stone's throw away from Starkville. And now he's double dipped with Emmanuel Tucker and Bryson Culie. Emmanuel Tucker has an elite athletic profile for an offensive tackle. Is he there yet? No. But if you go into the right setting with a coach like Brad Davis, there is no doubt that this guy is going to be playing not only on Saturdays, but on Sundays. Bryson Culie, I had never heard of before, I believe, February 28th or so. I saw him in that New Orleans Under Armour camp, and he was among, if not my top performing offensive lineman, not named Lamar Brown. But I digress. Bryson Culie is built like an offensive tackle. He's an athletic big guy. And again, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State all wanted him. His visit to LSU, I believe it was the 13th, put the Tigers in the driver's seat. And all of a sudden, Brad Davis and LSU are sitting on another elite offensive line haul. And they're still in the mix with guys like Darius Gray, who are going to come up the board probably toward the back end of the summer and have a chance to have one of, if not the best offensive line haul in the country for this 2026 class.
A lot to be excited about so far. Now let's get to what we're all watching for on Thursday. We've mentioned Lamar Brown a couple of times. We'll get to that in a second, that recruiting process. little mention of DeAnthony Lafayette, though, a guy that a lot of picks are starting to come in favor of. LSU, explosive, 6'1" edge rusher that flies all over the field from out of the Orlando area, and someone that I think for a lot of his high school career was kind of a little bit under the radar, but really exploded during the course of this junior season. And LSU was, his first or second SEC offer, I believe, and clearly that rapport has remained strong. How much do we know about DeAnthony Lafayette and just kind of what he brings to the table and a confidence level that LSU has going into Thursday to potentially land another out-of-state guy?
Yeah, Oklahoma was the team that I had heard most connected to DeAnthony Lafayette, who is a little bit of a hybrid defender, can play on the second level at like a linebacker, but can also be someone who can move outside and be a stand-up edge defender. Sounds a lot like, what is that? Oh, J.J. Bush, who just committed to Arkansas. So this, by default, and we can get into the NIL and the revenue sharing, but they missed on their target at J.J. Bush, who is now since committed to Arkansas. And they love DeAnthony Lafayette, who is, again, brings position versatility, can play linebacker, can be a stand-up edge defender. My pick would be on LSU going into, I believe he's also a July 10th announcement. Or not too far after. And you have to credit Blake Baker and this staff for quickly making up ground and now putting themselves in a very strong position heading into an end-of-week announcement with another hybrid defender that LSU would love to add to this class.
And we might as well dive right into it. We're talking about hybrids, the hybrid trench athlete superstar there at U-High, a top 20 prospect in the nation at any position that you want to rank him at, pretty much across the board, and the top uncommitted prospect in Louisiana's 2026 class, Mr. Lamar Brown, who we've talked about as much as anybody during this recruiting cycle on episodes of this show. We are now in, the home stretch of this thing. We won't record again before we get an announcement from him. I still don't feel overly confident, Tigers or Aggies. Our picks remain in on LSU as they have been for a while, but the Aggies have done one hell of a job. What is kind of your latest read on this? And I can't emphasize to folks enough that one answers. So do the colleges. The colleges don't know. He has not told anyone where he's heading at this point. And so everyone is on pins and needles around the country. The broadcast on ESPN2 will kind of tune fans in from around the country. But in College Station and Baton Rouge in particular, you've got some college coaches on pins and needles waiting for this announcement at 12:15 on Thursday.
Yeah, two things. I had two different sources tell me this. If anyone acts like they know what Lamar is doing, they are wrong. And two, I would not be surprised. One person said this. I would not, and this will not happen. But they said this is so tight that he would not be surprised if this got pushed till December to a signing day decision. I don't think that will come to fruition, but I think it does demonstrate the closeness between both the Aggies and the Tigers heading into Thursday's announcement. From what I've gathered, I think that a decision is close. I think it could be figured out as early as this evening or potentially at some point on Wednesday, though I have heard some deliberation. This could go into Thursday morning. Listen, he has made 9 visits, I think 8 or 9 visits out to College Station over the past 13 months. Only one of those was an official visit. The rest are on Lamar and his family's dime. And I think in terms of relationships, in terms of positional development, and in terms of NIL, I think A&M checks all those boxes. That's not to say that he doesn't have strong relationships at LSU and that he doesn't have a substantial NIL offering from LSU. But if you took away the hometown factor, which is a massive factor for Lamar Brown, who is from Irwinville, goes to U-High on LSU's campus, I think it would be easy to make a prediction in favor of the Aggies. But he does live in Irwinville, and he does go to University Lab, and he has been a priority for Brian Kelly and the staff since his 9th grade year at U-High. With all that being said, I have absolutely no clue which way I am leaning. But I would say this. pick is on LSU, and I am not comfortable changing it. I'm not even comfortable that I have a pick on any team. I think if I could riddle it out, I would. But anyone who is surprised if it is A&M on Thursday has not been paying close attention to this recruitment. And I would not be surprised if he picked LSU. I would not be surprised if he picked Texas A&M. I don't think Miami is still in the mix. I know that Texas is not in the picture. Picking between them, that is going to be up to Lamar and his mom and his representation, because both of these teams have put all their chips in the middle and are working overtime and then some to try to close here. I think it's fair to look back at this recruitment and say that he nearly canceled his LSU official visit and was very much on the hot seat of potentially going to A&M about a month ago. But you can't ignore that LSU has continued to swing and swing hard leading into that official visit, after, and in the days leading into this decision. None of these coaches and coaching staffs are taking any days off, from Mike Elko on down in College Station to Brian Kelly on down in Baton Rouge. Either pick would surprise me. And I'll leave it at that and throw it to you.
Yeah, I'm in a very similar situation to you. I've wished numerous times in the last week or so that I just hadn't put in a prediction on him to this point, because I don't want to switch it and then potentially get into the whole switching it back and forth several times in the final days. And so I'm not switching it unless I feel pretty definitively confident that it is not LSU. I think the amount of signs to me that make me feel sort of in my gut that the Aggies are, if not the team to beat, then I mean extremely well positioned. We've talked about it repeatedly. I think Texas A&M has been far better positioned in this recruiting process for far longer than people seemed to want to realize, because he was a kid at U High. But when you're a teenager who's making the decision to go to College Station over and over and over again, I think in some cases on back-to-back weekends and things like that, like there's clearly a lot of love there. There's a great rapport. There's a lot of draw there. And I mean, you mentioned the dynamic of almost canceling that LSU trip in late June, and just kind of the feel to take from that. It sounds like, as much as there's, there would be a desire to stay close to home, be close to family and whatnot, that essentially there's been an emphasis, it's been tried to be made to Lamar of, you need to make the decision that you feel is your decision, that it has to be the best for you. And essentially, to me, in a lot of ways, that feels like, don't let anyone hold you back and make you feel like it has to be LSU because you're from here. And so that can be kind of a freeing message to him. But at the same time, LSU just kind of continues to be right there. And we've seen other instances like this. We've seen situations where everyone thought at one point, Sage Ryan's probably going to Alabama. And then it turns out, nope, LSU got done what it needed to get done late. I think Blaine Bradford announcing to Ohio State has made this that much more of a focal point in this 26 class for LSU to not miss on both of those guys here in town. And so I really am not going to be surprised either way. I don't know what to make of it. Hopefully by Wednesday night, I'll have a better sense, but the A&M threat is certainly realer than LSU fans, I think, realized for a long time, but LSU has continued to battle its ass off in this slugfest between the two SEC rivals. So cannot wait to see one way or the other. Somebody's going to be really excited. Someone's going to be really disappointed. And then we'll be able to kind of, unpack it and put it in the rear view a little bit and go into vacation mode next week. But it's a hectic week, man. There
is confidence in College Station, and there is confidence in Baton Rouge. Yet there is a cloud of mystery hovering over both of these programs. It's a cautious optimism, I think is the right way to phrase it. Like A&M feels like they check all their boxes. They felt great about their offer. They feel very much that they are going to add a Bryce Perry-Wright and Lamar Brown in the middle of their defense, and that's going to be the building block of potentially the number one class in the country for Mike Elko and company, coming off the their best season in years. Yet at LSU, they feel that Lamar is going to be the centerpiece of another fantastic class, of a rich 2026 in-state group that has big Rich Anderson and potentially Lamar Brown in the middle of their defense. And they're going in with the thought that Lamar Brown wants to stay home and represent the Tigers. And there's a lot of people in his corner that believe that is what he wants to do. Like I said at the beginning, anyone who has any degree of competence over 50% is either on recreational drugs or the last name is Elko or Kelly, because anyone else, it's nobody knows.
I don't think anyone named Elko or Kelly knows right now either. Like the sense the sense that I get is they're anxiously awaiting the word the same way that we are at this point. Again, it's Tuesday afternoon. A lot can change for folks that aren't watching this till Wednesday night, Thursday morning, whatever. We hope to have a better sense by Wednesday night, or at least, earlier Thursday morning. And so make sure you're keeping up with everything on Rivals and on 3 and on the Bengal Tiger and whatnot, because there will certainly be plenty of updates between now and then. But what a crazy recruiting process this has been to cover for, obviously, somewhat of a unicorn of an athlete. We've talked about his talent at so many different potential positional fits in the trenches, and his recruiting process has taken on a unicorn-like recruiting process as well. And I think Lamar is loving it in a lot of ways. I know he's stressed in some ways and wants to kind of wrap it up and know where he's going to go and not feel tugged from each direction. But I think he's enjoying kind of knowing that we're all on these pins and needles that we are, and that Thursday afternoon is going to be his moment for the entire nation to tune into U High and see what the move is.
Yeah, like I said, I think that we might have a decision. We might hear something over in the overnight whispers, right? If you're staying up late, you're obviously on Rivals, you're on 3, you're on the Bengal Tiger, you're tuned into this. But all power to Lamar. The fact that if you're able to claim that you have had one of the most mysterious recruitments, at least between the two of us, who have seen quite a few interesting ones over the past 10 plus years, more power to you. It is. I say this to coaches. I say this to moms and dads. I say this to you probably so much that you have drowned me out. But like, this is Lamar's right to be as mysterious and selfish and, put himself and his family first as much as humanly possible. It is only him that has to either go and wake up at 5 a.m. and go work out for either Sean Spence and Tony Girardetti or Kyle Williams and Blake Baker. That's only on Lamar. It's only his family that he has to worry about and where he wants to get his education and live for the next 3 to 4 or so years. And it's all within his right. He is an absolute unicorn. This guy has a bright future on 2 different sides of the ball, which you cannot say about the majority. But this is the 1% of the elite recruits in the country. It's a very difficult decision because from what I understand, both of these schools are not only putting the pressure on, they have very lucrative offers both on and away from the field. And I just can't wait to find out where it is, because on July 11th, man, I mean, I'm not literally July 11th, because I have, I think, 4 to 5 commitments to cover that day, and the 12th and then the 13th. But like July 15th or so, drinking that beer, it's going to be real good. We feel real good knowing Lamar's recruitment is shut down. He is someone that both him and his mom have said to me, they are not flip candidates. This recruitment, there will be a pin stuck in it. It is very important to Lamar, who has flirted with committing to both of these teams, that he does not do a flip, and he knows that going in. So that's why it's such a struggle. There's no second guessing. There's no flipping, which just brings the gravity of what Thursday's 12-15 decision is going to be. And I'm giddy about it, Jared. I am just giddy. This is my excited face.
All part of why Lamar Brown's recruitment has loomed so large for this 2026 class around Louisiana, and looms so large for this week. We'll be keeping up with it again throughout the week and looking forward to that 12-15 announcement. We will not actually be going on vacation between now and next Tuesday, because we'll be back here to kind of unpack whatever it ended up being, Aggies or Tigers, as well as some other notable developments in the recruiting class for LSU in this 2026 class, as well as a little tease, Louisiana's 2027 class. Sam has a new forecast in for one of the top players. We were going to talk about it this week, but we've hit on Lamar quite a bit. So we'll come back and talk some more Pop Houston next week. Let Sam's message also at the end of that serve as kind of a reminder to fans that this is Lamar Brown's commitment decision, and it's super exciting for fans of one of these fan bases. But whether he's heading to Baton Rouge for college or College Station for college, it's his decision. It's his life. He has to do what's best for him and his family. And so, as disappointed as some fans may be,
they will be.
Don't tweet at him and be obnoxious on the internet. Like, this is his life, his career. He needs to do what he feels is right, the same way that each of us had to make choices along the way for ourselves. Each, fan with kids wants their kid to do what's best for them and not give them hell if they happen to choose to go to a school that is different from the one that they went. And so just let it be what it is. Be excited if he's coming to your school, disappointed if he's going someplace else, but not attack a kid on social media over the whole situation. And so we can remind y'all that every week, but either way, looking forward to 12:15 on Thursday, Lamar Brown's commitment decision. Keep up with rivals, keep up with On 3, keep up with the Bengal Tiger, keep up with that guy, Sam Spiegelman, myself, Jarrett Roser. And as always, thank you all for tuning in to Louisiana vs. All Y'all's Recruit That Boot.
We will be finding the people who tweeted Lamar, and we will embarrass you publicly. That's a fact. That's a promise.